Now this is the new bridge of Main Street over Allen Creek, and it is significant to the Civilian Conservation Corps because it's here at that location and right out here outside these windows where the CCC boys did their work in riprapping Allen Creek and engaged in a number of other erosion control projects on farms in the area. When they arrived here in July, they got off the train at the Northwestern Depot, formed up into columns of 4, marched across the bridge that then was there, out to the fairgrounds, with the Evansville band leading the way and lots of citizens following along. They camped at the fairgrounds. When they moved on to Illinois in November, they marched back down the street, again in column of 4s with the band leading the way, and crossed Allen Creek right there. So on May 30th at 3:30 in the afternoon, we're going to have a dedication of this bridge, May 30th being the original and correct Memorial Day, and a state historical marker will be unveiled there, noting that this is now known as the CCC Veterans Memorial Bridge. Evansville is famous for the original historic district, shown in part here. That's Dr. Evans's house on the right. More than 300 contributing structures. It is one of the largest historic districts in Wisconsin. It is the second oldest. Only Mineral Point has an older historical district. Ours was listed on the National Register in 1978, and the State Historical Society has said and repeated that we have the finest collection of 1840s to 1915 architecture of any small town in Wisconsin.
They've also said that the 4 corners there between Evans' house, the library, and the funeral home is the most significant 4 corners in the state of Wisconsin because it has 4 different types of art.
Yeah, for those of you in the back, if you didn't hear Jennifer, the intersection of West Main and First Street is extremely significant architecturally because of the diversity of the architecture. Dr. Evans's house on the northwest quadrant, High Victorian, High Gothic Victorian. This is directly across the street on the southwest corner. It's Dr. Quivy's medical office and residence, probably the best Greek Revival facade in Rock County. And it has been in continuous use since 1930 as a funeral home. Also on that intersection, what we call the Tower House, so the sign proclaims in front of it, with those very unusual curved windows. It's considered to be a High Victorian Italianate house. When Mr. Campbell was building it, not Vi Campbell's husband, different Campbell, his neighbors teased him and said, "Campbell, what are you doing with that tower? Is that a steeple? You building a church there? What is it?" But no, it was his residence. Another architectural style, although not on Main Street, this is on Liberty Street, stick style, where the framing elements are brought outside the building envelope, ornamented highly, particularly on the gable ends and porches. Here's an American Foursquare on West Main Street. Here we have a Queen Anne in the foreground and an Italianate in the background on Church Street. A very inviting front porch on a Queen Anne on Garfield Avenue. Another late Italianate also on West Main Street. Kind of partial that one. We have very few brick homes in Evansville. This is one of them, the 200 block of West Main. It's a Greek Revival, and it's for sale. 2 very nice Italianates, Queen Anne houses on Garfield Avenue. So that gives you an idea of the hundreds of very fine Victorian homes in the district. But the district also includes the commercial downtown, as well as institutional and religious buildings. These photos were taken 100 years apart of City Hall and the Methodist Church, and look how intact they are after 100 years. Now, there's one element in front of City Hall. The old Civil War cannon, which was the Civil War monument. You'll notice it's missing in this year's photo on the right. It's coming back on May 18th. I picked this one out because it's a nice view of East Main Street in the commercial district, but it also shows us back in the day when they had heavy snowfalls, they piled the snow right in the middle of the street as they do today. Here's a contemporary view. Note the bricks. That brick pavement was put down in 1914. Main Street was the first paved street in Evansville. Those are the same bricks. They were taken up when Main Street was reconstructed, literally from building front to building front, and then all the underground utilities were replaced. The bricks were taken to this lot, where they were cleaned and palletized by members of the UW football team to stay in shape over the summer and make a few bucks. There has been tremendous restoration and revitalization of the commercial buildings downtown, as shown in this before and after view. Dave did a wonderful job and won awards for the excellence of that restoration work. The Baker Manufacturing Company, right out the back window there, is not on the National Register, but it is eligible to be listed because it is an intact late 19th century, early 20th century manufacturing complex, and Baker has done a very good job of keeping the authenticity of the buildings while still adapting them for modern manufacturing. Baker was a world-famous windmill manufacturer until the early 1960s. This is the windmill at the museum complex. Evansville, Wisconsin is on the other side of the vein. This advertises the Hutchinson, Kansas branch sales office. I mentioned the cannon before. That's indoors at Baker Manufacturing because they are the prime contractor on the restoration of that artillery piece. Alan Baker was a member of the 2nd Wisconsin Volunteer Infantry Regiment in the Civil War, one of the first men from Evansville to volunteer. He fought and was wounded at the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. These fellows who've been coming to Evansville for the past 3 years are representing as reenactors the 2nd Wisconsin. So you look at those uniforms and you know exactly what kind of uniform Alan Baker was wearing at the Battle of Gettysburg. 1st Brigade Band in the background, and they will be helping us with the rededication of the cannon on May 18. Lake Leota Park will be filled that weekend with Civil War reenactors putting on demonstrations like the cavalry folks here. And the kids have had some hands-on learning. These are all Evansville students. You can see Butch Beetle in the background. And some of them have the knack for arm sport, others not so much, but they'll get instruction. Here's George Buss of Freeport, Illinois as Abraham Lincoln. He'll be joining us again this year, both for the Cemetery Memorial Program and for the cannon rededication. Here, Alan and Margaret Baker are portrayed in the Cemetery Theater. Justine Giltner and Andy Sodard playing the roles. And now we'll get back to some of our buildings and the new historic districts. The new South First Street Residential Historic District was just listed on the National Register. It's got 10 Queen Anne style houses, all associated with master builder Benjamin Hoxie. This is Hoxie's personal residence at First and Highland. He also built this spectacular Queen Anne at the south end of the street. The Evansville Seminary didn't last forever. It subsequently became the Weiler School for Boys, which was a military boarding school. Evansville Seminary had been coeducational throughout its history, and in fact, many classes contained more females than males. But now the girls couldn't attend there, so the Bowling School, or the Lake Leota School for Girls, a boarding school, was established in this building and conducted for many years. One more Queen Anne from South First Street to show you. This is described as a Hoxie income property. He built it as a rental, and look at the beautiful ornamentation on it. Now we get to the second of our new historic residential districts, the Grove Street district. It is one block, 9 houses on Grove Street, a variety of early 20th century styles. This is the only American craftsman style house in Evansville, built for the Puller family, the first house on the block. Here's a colonial revival, a couple doors away, overlooking the park. A Tudor revival, or English cottage style home with beautiful gardens. And we've got a couple of bungalow houses on the street, both on the south side of the street. Very interesting roof lines on those. Now the individual listings. The Evansville Standpipe. It's the last Chicago bridge and iron standpipe extant in Wisconsin. Most of these were replaced when the spherical water towers came up, and these were torn down. So Jim Brooks would say it was a last standpipe standing contest, and we won. Here's a historic postcard view from back in the day. Sorry for the bad resolution, but it shows people considered it was significant long ago. It was put up in 1903 to provide water pressure principally for firefighting, because back in 1903, nobody had indoor plumbing. Another individual listing, the O'Mara Eager Funerary Monument and Eager Family Plot on the other end of town at Maple Hill Cemetery. The consultant who recommended this for nomination to the National Register said, you just don't find monuments of this quality outside major metropolitan areas in Wisconsin. One of the people buried here on this plot is Sally Hardy Eager, who is probably the person most responsible for the historic preservation effort in Evansville commencing in the 1970s. And she, more than anybody else, was responsible for creation of the Evansville Historic District. Of course, Ruth Ann Montgomery was a great help in that effort. Sally Hardy Eager was a leading historian on the local, county, and statewide level. And here is the quality of the statue surrounding the monument. The anchor, a symbol of Christian hope. Now, our final individual listing is St. John's Lutheran Church. Prairie style, designed by a famous architect, John Steinman, built in 1958, 50 years after completion of the library. So here are the bookends on individual listings in Evansville. Prairie style, designed by famous architects, 50 years apart. This is our last slide. It's another bookend slide. We started with a train pulling into the depot. And this one's pretty significant for a couple of reasons. Number one, it reminds me to tell you that we're going to have a celebration here at Creekside Place on the 19th and 20th of July, celebrating the 150th anniversary of the arrival of the first trains here in Evansville. So Evansville was immediately connected with Chicago in July of 1863, and nothing's been the same since then. Second reason I wanted to put this one out is it's a circus train. Remember when the circus trains ran from Baraboo to Milwaukee, crisscrossing the countryside, and a couple of times ran through Evansville? Well, Evansville is a circus town. The Hall family circus and the Goldner brothers circus, both connected very significantly to Evansville. So it was very appropriate that the circus train came through town. The final thing that was important to me anyway is I looked closely at this photograph, And if you look at this utility pole in the front, standing just to the left of it is a young woman 25 years ago, this was 1988, who had no inkling that 20 and 25 years later she'd be the mayor of Evansville. She's standing right here, back when she had long hair. Her mother, Pat Heltz, is standing to the right of the utility pole. Pat was the first president of the Prime Timers, which has evolved into Creekside Place. So this building is a fruition of Pat's dream. And the other person I want to point out to you is this girl, sensibly standing in the shade of the boxcar, who undoubtedly didn't think that 25 years later she would be a special education student at the Levi Leonard Elementary School. But that's who she is. That's our daughter, Jenny. So, folks, that is Evansville History 101. Thank you.